and you are watching tonight. And we appreciate you for taking your time and for just coming in and just tuning in and supporting. And I want to tell you guys, we just won a major election, a major election. We all excited about it. We all feel so good because we got somebody who we feel like is going to be for the people in the office. But I want to remind y'all that this is the time when we got to double down. This is the time when we got to do the work. This is the time when we got to really push to make sure that we represent our communities and that we hold our governments accountable and that we let people know what it is we need so that they can give us what we really, 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 the resources we need. They can give us the access we need. They can give us the laws we need, the policies we need, the representation we need. And the reason why I'm bringing it up right now is because that's why this show is so important, because we come together, we talk to people who are doing work in the community, we talk to people who hold different positions in the community, and we share research, we share knowledge, we share experience, and we teach each other how to open up the doors we need so that we can actually change the world, change our communities, change our lives, change our families' legacy, and we can represent. So the work isn't done just because we have a new president elect and we had a first female vice president, the first female of color, and somebody who really we are praying and hoping is going to represent the people who look like them in office, right? Now we really got to do the work. So with that being said, I want to introduce you guys to Erika Wright. Erika Wright is the founder of You First. And the reason why I wanted to have Erika on tonight is because it's so important that we meet people who are really doing the work in the community. And we ask each other the hard questions. How did you get started? What made you do this? What are some of the tips that you have for people in other cities and other places that want to be able to make similar changes in their own communities, right? So, Erika, with that being said, can you give us a couple of just a little background on who are you? How did you get started in this? What made you want to start your organization? And just, for people who have never heard the amazing story of Erika Wright, just let them know who you are.
Hey, Keith. Thank you so much for having me on and allow me to share my story. My name is Erika Wright, and I'm the founder of You First Inc. I started You First about 6 years ago. Truly started in my brokenness. God gave it to me August 7th, 3:30 in the morning. Woke up. I started writing these parables like Paul. I didn't know what it was, and so in that time, I was going to a church out in Decatur, Georgia, and that particular Sunday, we were talking about our purpose. And I really didn't know my purpose in life at that time. But I remember this young lady who was sleeping under the bridge. And I saw her washing her hair. And as a person who has OCD, I started to think about, as a female, how does she get the basic necessities of life? And so it never left me. And so that morning, I just kind of started talking about it. If I had an opportunity, this is what I think I would do for 3 years. They started bringing all of the hygiene items that I had talked about. And from there, it just sparked. So I had a couple of my friends to get together, and we actually did sack lunches, hygiene kits, socks, and we went out into the community. Well, even at that time, I still didn't really think about it being a ministry or growing to this platform until I started hearing people's story.
Mhm.
I gave one bag to one young man, and when he told me his story, I was that person who used to drive around seeing people with a sign and saying, well, he looks able bodied. Why don't he go and get a job? I was that person. And then just to have eye contact, to hear his story, to know that, this was someone's brother, father, son, and when life takes us through so many different transitions, sometimes we don't know how to get back. And so that's pretty much my beginning story. And so what I started to do was use social media, because there again, this was like a ministry, didn't really have a whole full logistics. I'm a barber by trade. And so I started just posting the items that people started to give. And it just actually became contagious, and people wanted to just pour into it. And then God just started giving me little nuggets like, hey, I want you to go here. I want you to travel highways and byways, right? And we still don't know what that looks like. But what I recognized in that gift was to really start to share stories with people, because I think even at that platform where I used to have this my own insight to why people were homeless, I realized that there were stories that weren't being told. And so it wasn't just okay, I'm
I
sorry.
don't, I don't mean to pause you. I want to hear about the stories. I want to hear about the
Okay.
the work you're doing so people can understand the person who they
Okay.
side of the road, but I want to give a better background of who you are and what you do for people who may not be watching. I mean, who may be watching, but they don't
Okay.
know you. Uh, Erica, you have gave food. You've given some of the most basic necessities that we overlook because we're not in a position day to day to where we have so much lack.
That's
You
right.
made sure that people not only have the things they need to survive through winters, but the things they need to wake up in the morning and feel human and have dignity.
That's right.
You've
That's
done it
right.
for thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Even through the pandemic, you gave
50,000 bags.
50,000. And when you say bads, can you explain what these bads are? Because just to
So
say,
we call them love bags. And it's just a washcloth, toothbrush, toothpaste, and a bar of soap. Now, this bag can be a sandwich size or it can go up to a gallon size. It just depends on the resources that we have to put in there. And so, as a person who has good hygiene care or able to practice good hygiene care, it goes beyond just that. It goes shampoo, lotion, conditioner, nail clippers, anything that a person would need to, I say, make them feel presentable,
yeah.
make them whole, make them feel happy, make them feel like I'm worthy,
Mhm.
and to have empathy for those people. Because a lot of times I've been in a lot of places where I've seen homeless people come in, or they may be in the front of the storefront, and people walk past people. People won't let them come into the restaurants. Even some facilities lock their doors. So you have to have a key to, or a code to go in, because they know that they would frequently come in and clean up. And so if you're that person who's telling that story, you just may need to clean up so that you can. There are a lot of people who are homeless who are the working poor. They
Mhm.
have jobs. So who wants to go to work without having, to being having the items that they need to be able to go into there and represent like everybody else. So yes, we have donated over 400,000 love bags in the 6 years that we have been doing You First.
That's
And this consists of this is donated to not just the people who live without walls, who are up under bridges, but we work with local shelters because we know that people are coming in to shower. So even with that, they're scrambling for resources right now. A lot of people are not doing funding, so they're asking us, "Hey, do you have any bags, sanitary napkins?" Can you imagine a woman who has a cycle? And the pandemic, it didn't stop because of that, and so we're trying to make sure that we're having the basic needs, food. When we go out on Sunday mornings, we're doing bologna sandwiches, which is because that's what we can afford to
so
do right now, right?
hold on one second, because I want to make sure people get the full scope of what you do and what You First does. And this is the thing,
Okay.
you do this. This is your life. This is your world. So it's certain
Yes.
things you say that resonate with you differently than somebody who's sitting at home thinking about, wow, what can I do? How can I help? How can I get
Ah,
like
yeah.
you do so much more than just the love bags. You made sure
Yes.
people have food. You make sure that when it's cold, they have blankets. You make sure that people have change
Socks.
clothes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like the simple things, socks, stuff that
Hmm.
we don't think about when you have a washer and dryer at home or when you can run to Walmart and get something.
That's
And
right.
the
That's
thing
right.
that you were talking about that I really want to make sure that we just speak on and we just speak on honestly is the need for people in shelters. Like we spoke earlier, and I don't want to skip. I want people to
Hmm. I got you.
understand what You First is. That you guys aren't just a nonprofit that's branded to do what you feel. You're a
Hmm.
nonprofit that really goes into the community and looks at our most disenfranchised, forgotten
Hmm. Hmm.
population group and make sure you understand what they need and whatever they
Exactly.
you go get. Let that be
That's
food.
right.
Let that be, like
Hmm.
you said, sanitation napkins. Let that be whatever it is. It's
Hmm.
nothing outside of the scope of what you'll put in that van
That's
and
right.
go take to them. No matter
That's
where
right.
you gotta go to get it, no matter what it takes.
Yes.
But I want people to be able to see not the elevator speech, but the big picture.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Exactly
Yeah.
who you are, exactly what you do to be able to make this happen. The fact that sometimes you don't have the support you have, but you still make sure the people who you do this on behalf of, they get what they need. The fact that sometimes you're doing this in your house and you're trying to do everything you can to make sure that those bads without not to take nothing away from your team,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
not there, you're doing it. The
That's
fact
right. That's
you're
right.
filling out You're filling out grant applications when you don't even know how to do the paperwork sometimes.
That's right. That's right.
I want people to be able to see the entire division of you first that you got from God, that you went into the community and saw the lack of, that you had the compassion to say, as long as I got breath in my lungs, you're gonna have dignity. As long as I
Yes,
got,
that's right.
as long as I got blood beating in my heart, you're gonna have an ally, right? I
Hmm.
want you to be able to slowly go through the process of what you do. So that for
That's right.
somebody sitting at their house right now,
That's right.
might be a great
Well,
person, but they've never contributed in this kind of way. Why you? Why you first?
well, let me just say this. Thank you for saying that because I take the weight on my shoulders, right? And it is not about quote unquote the nonprofit. This is about knowing that people need us, right? And why not me? That's if God gave it to me, why not me? I, on a daily basis, make sure that we have the simple necessities, whether that is calling people that I don't know, writing letters to hotels, begging for the little small shampoo bars of soap, posting on Facebook, Instagram. It takes me about an hour and a half a day just to post something, an event or a picture that we've taken. A lot of time we've gotten flack about the pictures. Well, the reason why I post pictures of me giving the items to people is not because I'm looking for recognition. I want people to know that these people are here. And
Mhm.
because of the pandemic, the numbers are going up with COVID cases, but the numbers are going up of the people that we see who are sleeping outside. And as it gets colder, I can't even, I mean, when I get in my car, Keith, sometimes I cry because I can't imagine. It feels selfish sometimes to be able to come home in a warm environment and take a hot shower. But I was there myself. I slept in my office for a whole year. I was still doing this work and I was homeless. And I was still trying to figure out, God, you really want me to do this? But I knew through the stories that, and then the thank you that you get when you give someone a bologna sandwich, who, and if I'm giving something on a Sunday and nobody has come out to feed you Saturday until like maybe 4 or 5 o'clock, people are hungry. So, whereas I have this thing where I think government or whoever could be doing more, but at the end of the day, why wait for that, right? So if I can sit at the table, I go to the store, Walmart, buy bread, bologna. I've gotten it down to what it would cost to do how many bags. Um, Whatever we get in with that week, that's what I spend. If I don't have it, we can't do it. I make the sandwiches that Saturday night. We get up Sunday morning, I pack them, and we load up. Now, before we received the van, I was doing everything in my 2008 Honda Civic, and it was on its last legs. And here, lo and behold, we received a van. But before that, you know how many trips I would have to make to the stores, to home, to we don't have a facility, building facility, so we have a
Let's not say that.
okay.
Let's say that God is working that out. Let's speak that
God
in.
is working that out. I'm gonna speak
Because
that in
we
existence.
toured a building for you today, right?
Yes, we
People
did.
understand the great work you're doing. And once people
Thank
say, you
you.
know what, even if I only got $5, if I only got $10, if I only got
Thank you.
$10, I'm sending it in to an organization that's for the people. You're
Thank
gonna
go
go out here and you're gonna get your facility. So
Well,
I
thank you.
apologize, but I believe in affirmation.
That's okay. Thank you. I do too.
I
I do
believe
too.
in claiming it with your words, right? You
That's
do
right. That's right.
serving your community, you will have your needs met. Just like we're not gonna just skip over the fact that how you said that you were sleeping in your office for a year while you're serving people. We're not just gonna skip over that. Because see,
Hmm.
this is something people need to understand. We don't always have to be in the best position to be a vessel. We don't have to
That's right.
wait a moment before we go out and we serve. When
That's
God
right.
gives us a vision or whatever your belief system is, when you see a need, you answer that need. So
That's
you
right. That's right.
how you gonna get out the office, but you knew it was people out here that needed something
Hmm.
that you could do. And
That's
you
right.
your purpose, it paved the way for your life.
And that's what I did. I met people on a journey. Even while I was serving and sleeping upstairs, there were times when God would tell me to talk to a person that I didn't know. And then let's go back to the mental illness. I was diagnosed about maybe almost 10 years now with bipolar, anxiety, OCD. And so for a person who lost a job, health insurance, couldn't get my medicine, all of these things was aligning me with doing this work because now I have a different conversation when I can talk to someone who I can tell is depressed because I know what it looks like. And there are days when people don't realize, unless they're close to me, I'm still trying to be a founder, CEO, physical work, dropping off, and I'm 51 years old, and I am still trying to get regulated on medicine. So, there are days when I have to, I have to make myself get up. But you know what makes me get up? Knowing that I'm getting ready to help somebody. You first saved my life. Because when I was sleeping in the office and I lost everything, I was about to lose my car, didn't have any money. I had to ask people for things that I never had to ask for. And then, I wanted to commit suicide. So I know what it feels like when we're out there on the street and somebody said, when they come up, will you pray with me? How much time does it take for somebody to stop and pray with somebody?
Mm-hmm.
But people don't want to touch people. Even in the pandemic, I have not missed since the pandemic hit. I was gonna just close it up, but God didn't do it that way. And we're still out there on the ground during the pandemic, have traveled from Atlanta to California and back, and still going out on Sundays. And we don't even know who has COVID or not. But that's when God tell me to go, I go.
You
And
know what?
so even
I'm sorry.
it
I don't mean to keep
and
in.
even okay,
Go
no. So even with that, I'm gonna share this with you that a lot of people don't know. Technically, Keith, I'm still homeless because I was able to partake in the voucher program, which got me out of the office. But there were so many hurdles that I had to go through that really is showing me now what people have to deal with when they come off the street. You have to have wraparound services. Are they there for everyone? I was a female with no, I have a son, but he's older. So if you are a single person with no mental illness and you lost your way, lost your job, it's very difficult for you to get on programs. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So all of these things that I'm learning was a lot of things that I went through myself. So I know when I went to get my medicine, I was used to taking certain medications from private sector. I had a therapist. I was learning what to eat, what not to eat, when to go to bed, all of those things, right? When you go into have to go to when places like Grady to get your medicine, they don't provide all of those services. And I'm still now fighting to get some of the medication that I was taking because it's a grant funded program. They don't offer it. So what was working for me and what they tried to put me on was lithium. And so I'm thinking now when I look around and see people in the waiting room, is this what we're doing to everybody? Just, the one-stop shop. So now I know that God is diving me deep into this work to really be able to speak for the people who can't speak for themselves.
You
So
know
it's
something
much more
that
than the
I
bag.
hear you saying, and this is something I'm a strong believer in. You'll find your purpose through your own struggles. If you look
Hmm.
deep enough into your own life, you represent a population group. Everything you go through, from your own struggles to your favorite foods, to your favorite colors,
Hmm.
clothes, to your favorite entertainers, to your favorite places to even spend time at. Everything
Yeah.
you do represents a body of people. So if you look
Yes.
into your own life and you look at the things you struggle with personally, and you start finding answers for your own struggles, while you're finding answers for your struggles, you'll also find the space where you can serve in this world. So I
Yes.
see it
Yes.
that you didn't run from your struggles.
Hmm.
You didn't give up, even though you may have
Hmm.
had moments where you felt like you wanted to.
Hmm.
What you said
Hmm.
was, I'm gonna be strong enough for me and one more.
That's
And that
right.
one
That's
more
right.
gave you the push. Because when we don't see it in ourselves, when we
Hmm.
lose the value that we have because the world done beat us down or
That's right.
because things
That's
seem so
right.
overwhelming. But you can think of that
The one more.
one more.
The one more.
And when you push for that one more, you're also pushing for you because you can't give if you're pouring out of an empty cup.
That's
So
true.
cup is
That's
going to
true.
get full because you're selfless. And that's what you
Hmm.
did. You became a selfless leader that gave
Yeah.
people something that they would not have if it wasn't for you. But
That's
this is
right.
something I want to reiterate, and I'm going to do it time and time again during this interview. We need to give to you so you can give to them. If
Mm.
we want people to lift up our community, then we got to understand we have to lift up those people.
Yes. Yes.
'Cause the more
Yes.
you're lifted, the more you can serve. And it's already been proven that you're a servant
Hmm.
leader and that you do this for the people because you are the people.
Yes.
Like you
Yes.
said, even before I find my way out, I'm gonna find a way to get you to where I'm at. I
That's
may not
right.
get
That's
you
right.
all the way out of here, but I'm gonna get you to where I'm at. And
That's
who
right.
better to be able to go and break down the system and break down barriers than a person who has had the barrier themselves. So
That's
I'm so
right.
proud of you. So proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So something I did wanna talk about. When
Okay.
Matter of fact, before we even do that, I have something that touched my heart today that I want to share with you.
Okay. All right.
The video that I saw from a young man today on Instagram. Um, I'm gonna play the video, and I just want you to hear. I just want you to hear his story and hear what he's going through.
Okay.
The DeKalb County DFAT system is so corrupt. It's not good for these children. My nephew been in DFAT since he was 1 year old. Me and my niece have been looking for him. We've called, she's reached out, she's tried to get information, she tried to get custody of her little brother. 4 years later, almost 5 years later, we finally find him because a caseworker had enough love in her heart to find his family. They never kept contact with the family. They never kept contact with us so we could see my nephew, so we could spend no time with him, so he can keep that family connection. They never did. Now, 5 years later, after we find him and want to be in his life or in position to get him and take care of him, y'all tell us that we can't, that we ain't, that y'all not giving him to us. I passed the drug test. I passed the background check. My finances would check out. My lifestyle would check out. They telling me because I'm a rapper that I'm not capable of taking care of my nephew. Y'all put him in 2 men households. Y'all put him in households where he's been beaten on. Y'all got him on medicine, Adderalls, and saying he got ADHD because.
Okay, so I don't want to get into too much of that family business, just for the simple fact that this touched me, but I didn't ask their permission. Could I share this? Right. This is Little Donald. His Instagram is Little Donald. So it's
Okay.
easy to find his story and to be able to follow up on the story because, like I said, his name is Little Donald. You can find him. But what touched me so much about his story was just when you saw the tears that he's holding back because he's trying to be a part of his nephew's life.
That's your life. That's
But
right.
somebody is holding him back from being able to be in his own nephew's life. And you know what? I want you to be able to look in my eyes when I'm saying this. I'm gonna take my glasses off. We got to understand that our people are hurting, that our people need us, our people are
That's right.
struggling. And like you said
That's right.
about so many people who are living through different situations, and it's not because they're not trying, it's not because
Yeah,
they're not,
exactly.
it's because that a door been closed and they don't know how to open that door back up and how to
Exactly.
get back into society in an equitable type of way, in a way to where they can hold themselves down. That the average person wouldn't be able to pay their bills for 6 months if they lost their job.
That's right.
So if you
That's
were to
right.
get sick or you were to get in an injury and you couldn't work for the next year, year and a half, the average person wouldn't be able to pay their bills.
That's
So
right.
a family having a child, not being able to pay their bills, child get put in the defects at 1 years old.
That's
It,
right.
it takes 4 to 5 years to be able to locate that child. And then once a family member who can take care of that child steps up, they're being told that they cannot get access to that child. All right.
That's right.
So I'm saying that because you were about to get into telling the stories of people who we see on the streets, telling the story of people who we judge before we know what's going on in their life.
Before we know what's going on.
And
Before we know what's
that's
going on.
why I wanted to share that story because you don't know what's going on in people's
You
life.
don't know. You're
You have
right.
no idea when
And,
you.
and you know, and that's and I love that you touched on that because when God gave me this gift to help, it was the immediate need
Mhm.
because and I hear you talk about this often. You know, I see you feeding people often. And so when you're hungry, how do you function? When you haven't had anything to drink and it's 100 degrees outside, how do you function? Do you know how many people we see who have visible disability,
Mhm.
broken legs, scars? You sleep outside for a couple of days and see what you have to deal with insect bites, so on and so forth. So, what I am praying to do is to be able to have that van packed with immediate needs, Neospora, umbrellas, ponchos, anything that when you're outside that you're not thinking about because you have the luxury to go home and do that. But that makes an impact in somebody's life. Because when you're wet and tomorrow when it's dry, you don't have anything to put on.
Mhm.
And so what we're trying to do to say, hey, let's get people into housing, let's get them off the streets, but they need their immediate needs met. And
So
just like that story, it can easily be a cycle.
Yeah.
because there are families who are homeless, families who are sleeping in extended stay motels because they may have a voucher, but they may not have a place to stay or living in their
You
cars.
don't know this, Erica, but something that I do every year is for Thanksgiving, for Christmas time, for really all the holidays, I work with a group of older ladies and we get turkeys and different food. We cook the food and we take it to every single extended stay hotel in DeKalb,
Wow.
Atlanta, and we feed people at their door. We box up the food
I
and we
love that.
directly to their door. I've been
I
doing
love that.
almost 15 years now. And I did that because I used to sell drugs in those same places. So
Hmm.
I became wealthy because of their need, because they're trying to self-medicate because their life is so difficult and they're going
That's
through so much and
right.
they're struggling. When I was in the streets, I mind you, I was homeless when I was a young teenager with my
Hmm.
family, right? So I started selling drugs because that was how I became home. That's how I was
Exactly.
sleeping on sofas and sleeping on floors to me having my
Hmm.
own place, right? So I didn't understand how bad I was hurting people. I didn't understand how I was
Hmm.
taking advantage of people in their weakest, most vulnerable moments. But when I found out what it was I really was doing, when I changed my life, it wasn't enough to change my life. I had to go back and I had to erase that footprint as best I could.
Hmm.
And that
Hmm.
I had to be man enough to apologize, and I had to be man enough to say, what can I do? Not just an
Thank you.
apology, but a change behavior and the best of what I could do to say, I really want to help, right?
That's
So
right.
here, like you said, we go to the door, we just ask, what's on your mind? If
That's
you
right.
eat, you want us to sit down with you while you eat. It's not
Hmm.
just giving you a food, it's giving you a friend.
That's right. That's
We're
right.
not making sure that you're physically full. We want to make sure that your heart and your spirit is full.
Exactly.
But it's something you said that caught me earlier. You would be surprised by how many people just ask, "Can you sit with me for a second? Can you just
Can
pray
you
with me?"
sit with me
I
for a
had people
second?
who told
Talk
me,
to me.
"I don't want $1. I don't want anything, but let me just
Hmm.
talk to you because nobody
That's
treats
right.
me human." But
That's right.
before we get too deep into this, I want to ask you, how did you start you first? What was the first step? Say there's somebody watching right now, 500 miles away, but the city has a lot of the same issues. What would you tell
Um,
they wanted to start an organization?
well, I'll tell anybody, don't start like I did. But I would just say it was truly just God's gift. So a young lady that I met at church actually worked for Homeland Security. And when I left that Sunday, she said, I don't know you, you don't know me, but God told me to help you. And so she and I became friends. When she traveled, she said, come and go with me and bring your bags. So while she was at her meetings, I would be down because, as you know, at this time, I really didn't have a whole lot, right? So I would be down in the business center and I would be, what's 501c? What's a nonprofit? And then I started talking to people. And then I was like, okay, I understand a little bit more and a little bit more. And so with her help and just doing research, Googling everything, just diving into it, what to do, what not to do. But the biggest thing for me, and I would suggest to people, if you're going to start something, your passion, your dream, um, don't dive in too much where because at one point I was doing a whole lot of everything and it was just too much, right? Because you always still have to come back down to volunteers, people who are not really getting going to work, and they may not have the love and the passion that you do. And so to get people to come into your vision, your mission to help you is first and foremost, if you can get people to help you with that. But the other thing I would suggest is to simplify what you're trying to do. There are things that I want to do further down the line to make a greater impact. But right now, this is what I have seen that can help immediately, which is giving me the platform to say, listen, if you give me $5, this is what I can do with it. So can you imagine if you gave me $500,000, what I would do with it, how many lives we could touch? And so what I would suggest is to people to really sit down with themselves, to really listen to where they know that their feet are being planted to move to. And then once you do that, do your homework. Um, find people that are willing to invest into you. That just really came to us maybe about 3 years ago, where we had people to really pour in financially. And then I started using volunteer match. So when
Well,
we would go,
I don't want to get too far past different points because it's
okay,
different. In a sense, I guess you would say you're passing the baton in different phases, right? So a person
okay,
run that first leg and then that second leg, and there's different, parts to making it out of
okay.
the race. I want to stop and talk about that first part. Um, it's a few things you said there that really stuck out to me. The first one would be understanding where you're being called or where your feet are being planted.
Hmm.
And for me, what I think when I hear that is if you can only make one impact in this world, If
right.
you can only change one space, if you can only
That's right.
erase one problem, what would you want that impact to be, and what would you want that problem that you erase to be?
Exactly.
And once you can answer that question,
That's right.
that's your calling. So for
That's
me,
right.
I look at poverty, lack of education, prison pipeline. Once
Hmm.
you go into the prison pipeline, I look at myself. Once I became a criminal, I couldn't read when I first started selling drugs. So
I
since
got
I
you.
couldn't read, I couldn't get employed. Since I can't get employed, but I still got bills and I still got to eat and I still got all these things going on, that means I got to get into criminal activity. Now, me
Right.
getting into criminal activity impacted every life in my community because now I'm creating a footprint and a wave that's hitting every house and hitting every
Hmm.
person, right? So
Hmm.
now
Hmm.
it's like a domino effect because one more person became one more criminal that impacts
Hmm.
one household today, another household tomorrow.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
I
Right.
look at
And that and you're right. And so that one thing.
I'm sorry, your volume went
The,
out.
okay. I'm sorry. You hear me now?
Yeah, I cannot.
So the one thing that made an impact was again that first immediate connection, right? And so when I think about my life and how I present it as a barber, a cosmetology, making people look good so that they can present in the world. So when I realized that my passion and my purpose was to make sure that people had the basic needs in life, that was the avenue to everything else, to going to school, going to get a job. And so, even all the things that I really want to do down the line, it still starts for me right here with making sure that people have the basic needs. And then I think sometimes, too, even with big organizations, there are a lot of, it's like an octopus, there are a lot of legs to it, it's a lot of moving components. But I know for me, it was always brought back to stay with this right now because we didn't have a lot of funding, we didn't have all the things that I thought we needed in the beginning. But when I realized that we were making an impact in just doing those things, and then just like you, we started to see the other doors. We started to see the kids who were going to school. We saw the people that were coming out of prison who needed a bag so that they can clean up. Things of that nature.
So you're getting into the second part of what I was thinking about now. And
Okay.
you'll find your purpose as you do your work, right? Because
Yes.
there's questions that you didn't know you needed to ask, so you couldn't find
Hmm.
the answers to them until you got and started doing the work.
That's
Now,
right.
you
That's right.
also couldn't build the right relationships where people could support you until you start doing the work with whatever you did have, because
That's
people
right.
aren't gonna support what they can't see. If people don't see you doing the work, they're not going to want to elevate what you're doing because they don't know what you're doing. So
Exactly.
if you only got two bads to go pass out, you need to go pass out those two bads and trust that somebody will see you passing out those
Hmm.
bads.
Hmm. Hmm.
They'll ask you, well, how can we make it five bads? But you got
Exactly.
to do the work with what you have. Like
And we had to learn what to put in the bags too, because like you said, a lot of people were saying we were giving out, I think maybe suitcases or something like this is all kind of. And they were like, "Ma'am, I gotta walk. I don't need that. Can I have a book bag?" So it was all of those different components, like you said, having those conversations, listening to, well, all of that is great, but I really just need the toothpaste. Or they would take the soap out the bag. So, like you say, you started seeing that, and it made you kind of go back and refresh to say, okay, let's regroup. How can we touch more people with just the smaller bag as opposed to trying to make a $5 bag?
yeah. So with that being said, touch more people. Just real quickly, we're gonna continue the conversation, but for somebody watching right this second, where can they find you first at?
ProjectUFirst.org, and all of our social media links are Project You First. That's Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Okay, so just want to make sure for anybody that may be watching now, may not stay
Mhm.
to the end.
All right, thank you.
First.org.
Project You First. Hmm.
All your social media is Project You First.
You First, yes.
Is the word, I'm sorry, the letter U.
It's the letter U in the word first. And our legal name is You First. And of course, like you say, starting out, there was a whole lot behind that, but it's Project You, known as Project You First.
Okay.
Letter U in the word first.
Yeah. So Project You First, guys. And this
Yes.
is an organization I could say firsthand deserves
Thank you.
support that they can get because, like she said, it's very unique that you're gonna see people who are serving while they need services.
Yes.
So
Thank
why you still got to fight for this over here? You're saying, well, I at
you.
least got the resources for this. So even though I got
Hmm.
my own battle, I'm gonna fight on your behalf too.
Of
That's
course.
the true servant leader. So
Yes.
getting back into what we were saying, we figured out where we feel like we want to fight at. We figured out what is that one thing that we can erase, that one problem that we can give an answer to. We started doing what we can with whatever it is we have. Doesn't mean if we got to do volunteer groups with our girlfriend or our boyfriend, or if it's got to be our cousins. It don't mean if our parents are helping us pack the bags. It don't mean if the kids are helping us give them out.
That's right.
We started wherever we're at. What's the next step?
I would say you have to have you have to be obedient. You
And what do
can't.
you mean by that? I know where you're going with it.
Okay.
What do you mean?
You have to, if, depending on who you call your creator, but for my higher power is when I devoted myself to I surrender. What do you want me? What do you want me to do? And so for that, meaning when my friends were out having fun and things were going in turmoil in my life, but I was still serving, or I was still trying to figure out how can I get some more bread and some more meat. A lot of people would have quit. A lot of people would have threw their hands up and say, this is not for me. And so when you set your eyes on what you're going to do, you got to stay steadfast to that. You got to be willing to be in it for the long haul. And there are times when you're not going to get the recognition, not the recognition for Erika, but the recognition that you first can be seen, so that we can hopefully get the attention that could bring us more resources. You know what I mean? And so even when that doesn't happen, you still have to know that it's not even about that. It's about what I'm doing. So you got to stay in your lane, do your work, and stay true to what you're doing.
Okay, so what are some of the stories that you feel keep you going? Like when you say you gotta stay committed, you gotta remember what that calling was, why you were called to do it, and you gotta stay I guess you gotta stay in alignment with that calling, right?
Okay.
Like you can't
So
let it in
yeah,
your life distraction stop you.
I'm an original peach right here in the city of Atlanta. To see so many people displaced is disheartening to me. And I'm not just talking about a tent here, sleeping bag here. I'm talking about people who look like me, whether they're and who don't look like me. And that's another thing. Homelessness doesn't have a face. It's not about who you believe. It's not about that. When I see kids, young guys, when I see older women, when I see people who can't, I mean, just people who are just sleeping in the middle of the street at 12 o'clock on a Monday, and so what are we doing as brothers and sisters to say, what can we do to help these people? And now that people are losing their homes, we're going to see more of this. And so the stories that I hear is, first of all, I'm hungry. Do you have anything to eat? Now that it's getting cold, you have blanket, you have socks. And when it rains, you want to go back out because you want to make sure that they have something, because people's health and their life depend on that. So, people have died on the street. It's like, it's not unheard of. And so my thing is, when I hear the stories of someone I know that can make it, because I've been in the West End and people have flagged me down and I didn't recognize them. And they said, thank you. You don't remember me, but you gave me a bat. You prayed for me. You stopped, and those
homeless. These are people who now
exactly who now have a job, who got,
because you bridged that for them in that brief moment. You were able to help them come back into society. And
exactly. And guess what? That's my story. I'm still not where I want to be, but that's my story. Somebody helped me. Somebody paid my car note. Somebody brought me something to eat, and I have family. So people were thinking, even my mom said, one of her friends was like, I didn't know Erika was homeless. But, even with that, how many people want to walk around with that sign to say, I need something? You know what I'm saying? There are a lot of people who are going to work in cubicles who are sleeping in their cars. They're not having that conversation. And so I think when I have that particular conversation with people that we've helped, or those who are still have that story, that if I go out tomorrow, I'm gonna see them. I know where they are. I know where their encampment is. These people are some shining their shoes to get ready to go to Marta or Walmart. They got a vest on, but they're sleeping in a tent. And so at the end of the day, I think I am trying to share this with the world, because we can sit in our homes and watch our TV and see, oh, there's a problem. Well, I'll send $50 to this person and let them deal with it. But at the end of the day, that's putting a band-aid on it. We really need to get it, like you said, to the people who have been incarcerated. Let's talk to them before they leave those gates. Those kids who are not being educated, but they're building the jail cells for them because they didn't pass the test. Let's start there. So it's not just about the bag that we're giving out on the street. This is a conversation that needs to be brought to the forefront. We just had an election. I cannot really name one person, just being honest, of all of the people who have ran, who has put that in the forefront.
Yeah,
They don't
you're
want to talk about it.
right.
They're
And if
not going to talk about it.
if we don't stand up for our brothers and sisters, nobody's going to talk about it because, I mean, in truth, it's something that's in the shadows. It's something that
Yes,
no city wants to say, hey, this is something that we can't deal with. This is something we need
that's
to
right.
sit help with. There's no
That's right.
group out here that is representing for them to make
That's
sure
right.
that while you're comfortable in your home, you know what the face of homelessness looks like.
That's right.
You know
That's
what the
right.
person,
That's right.
like you just said, may have made your food in a restaurant, but they're going back home to a tent.
That's
You
right.
know
That's
what their
right.
story is.
That's
Like
right.
everybody who's homeless isn't somebody who has a drug addiction. And let's say this,
Exactly.
even if a person did have a drug addiction, do they still not deserve to be maintained until they can find their way?
Exactly.
Because they may
Exactly.
have that drug addiction because they're trying to self-medicate because life is so hard right now. It's
That's
so
right.
hard
That's
right
right. That's
now.
right. That's right.
Hard to face it. And if they can't face it and they have to get high or they have to get drunk so that they can make it through another
Mm,
day, they're going to continue until that cycle becomes unbreakable.
exactly.
When they look in the
Exactly.
mirror, they see the same person that the people ride by and see when they treat them like just an animal on the streets. And once they get
Exactly.
to that point, you don't know what a person to do. I remember
That's right.
there was three homeless young men who used to be in front of a convenience store. Every
Mm,
day they would ask, could they take out trash? Could they cut your
mm,
grass? Could they do all
mm,
kind of just, you know,
mm,
laboring type jobs?
right.
Young men, the oldest one was probably 21, right? So
Mm,
I had a office up the street. I would let them come over, do things from time to time, but I can't support all of them and
right.
my
Right.
so I used to ask the community, hey, y'all don't need anything. It's nothing you can let these guys
Mm,
do.
mm,
One day they went into that store and they robbed the clerk and they killed the clerk under $100 that they
mm,
split three ways. They got
mm,
caught immediately. The community asked me, could I do a visual for the store? I came and did the visual. And when I came, I looked at everybody and I said, we killed the clerk
mm.
because we failed the young men. The
That's
young
right.
men pulled the trigger, but we pushed them to the point where they had to pick up a gun. Because if
That's
we
right.
had embraced them, if we had a
That's right.
came in the same number and said, hey, what can we do to help you? Because you're
Mm,
young, you have a whole world ahead of you.
that's
What can
right.
we do to help get you back on track? Then
Yeah.
those three young men would have never had to go into a store to be able to
Mm,
do it. I had another group of young men that were in a program that we worked with inside their high school, where we helped get them life skills, social emotional skills, different things of that nature.
mm,
And then one of the young men, after he came out of our program, he got arrested for breaking in cars in a parking lot. After they broke in cars,
wow.
taking the debit cards out of the cars, going inside of the grocery store. And when they went inside the grocery store, they would go and buy food so that they could have food.
Mm, yeah.
And
Yeah.
living in an abandoned hotel that had been closed down. So when they tried to swipe one of the debit cards, the clerk saw that the card was stolen. The clerk called the police,
Mm,
and the police came and locked them up. Now we also created the programs for the court that were alternative sentencing programs. So I talked to
mm,
the district attorney. I told the district attorney that they were living in a hotel. I told them their situation, and I talked to them and showed them the program they had been through, the things that I saw them do, how hard I watched them
right.
put. They had parents who had substance issues. One of them had a parent that had passed, and we
Mm,
ended up
that's right.
creating a program where they got a scholarship so that they can go to college. All of them are college graduates now. But
Wow. Awesome.
one bump
That
could have
one.
their
Yeah.
entire life. But
That's
it's
right. That's right.
we came together, and the people who were supposed to prosecute them trusted us and said, you know what, let's see what you can do with them before we put them behind bars.
Oh, awesome.
All
Yeah.
right. So I'm saying that to
Yeah.
say when you understand people's stories, when you
Yes.
see a person as a human, when you can say to
That's right.
yourself, what kind of mistake could I possibly make if I was put in that same position? If you
That's
say to
right.
yourself, how would I feel if people treated me like I was not worthy every day,
That's right.
every day for years? How could that
That's right.
impact you here? When we start getting into the mindset of what it's like to be in that position, what it's like for us to be able to feel like we're not a part of society and to be outside of society, it really tells a bigger picture. We were talking also about the shelters, and we were talking about the difficulty of private shelters versus emergency shelters. And because our city doesn't have the necessary amount of emergency shelter space, some of the difficulties that people go through in our streets. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
So, as you know, a couple of years ago, they closed down Cortland and Pine, which a lot of people don't like to say that that's why we're having a problem of more people out on the streets. But from my experience of the stories that were told to me, that's what I feel the outcome is, right? Because this shelter would allow people, when you say an emergency shelter, this means if you are fleeing from a domestic violence situation at 3 o'clock in the morning with 3 kids, you can go here. Or if you just, needed to go somewhere for a couple of nights, you can go here. You need a shower, go there. And so when you have private ran facilities, they can decide how many beds they want to allow for how many people, whether it want to be, gender based, for females or males or so on and so forth. And so then when you don't have an emergency shelter for all, then you run into the problems of transgender not having a place to go, youth at a certain age don't have a place to go. And so it causes a problem. And so what I'm seeing now,
And also, Erica, the cost. The cost can fluctuate depending on the need, because a lot of people don't understand that it can be more expensive to
that's
stay.
right,
Like some shelters are $10
charge.
$12 a night, some are $7 a night. I've seen shelters before they had a $24 fee.
And what about the shelters who have restrictions? There's one shelter on Peter Street, and the guys tell me all the time, if you notice, they line up about 4:30 every day, right? And the community don't want to see the people hanging around. But now that it's getting cold, they don't have so many beds. But the guys are telling me, well, Erica, do you know when you go in, you have to go to their church service first before you get a food, cot, or a shower. And so it's that's involved. I'm sorry.
No, you
I
okay
thought
with
I had put it on this. I thought I put it
doing the
on
work, it's
just
gonna happen. When you're doing the work, people gonna reach out to you.
so yeah, and so it's that too. And what about the people who do have jobs, right? So there are restrictions. What time do you come in? Maybe some shelters say you have to be in at 6 to 7 o'clock in the evening. Well, I don't get off to 9:30. And these are stories that we're hearing because I'm always asking, how long you been out on the streets? Why did you decide to be here as opposed to going into the shelter? And a lot of times now we're hearing that they're afraid of the virus just as we are. So even when we go out, they're like, what's in the bag? What do you have? Like they don't want to touch things. And then they're saying, well, we don't want to go in there because I heard that the cases are this. And so some of them not even being educated to what's going on in the world so that they can know how to navigate.
Where are they getting a news source from? I mean, think about it.
Exactly.
You don't have a phone that you can charge because you don't have access to power. You don't have access to television. You don't have access to a radio. Where are you getting your information from?
Exactly.
I understand once you've been homeless for a certain amount of time, you get pushed out of society. You're not being able to keep up with American society. So getting back on track, getting your life back in place is so much more difficult than what average person.
And so even where they closed down Pine Street Shelter, I was just down there today. They have a center where they feed breakfast and a lot of time. But if you notice, it's just like anybody. If this is where you've lived for so long, that's where you go. So even though the shelter is closed, they're migrating back to that area. And again, they're building high rises, and it is politics. We got a $1 billion stadium. Nobody wants a homeless shelter in their backyard. But even when we did our cross country tour, it made me realize that there's so much land out here. There's so many places that even if you don't want it in your backyard, there can be a facility that can be for people.
Do you mind talking about your cross country tour? We were getting into that. I apologize for interrupting you.
That's okay. So much. Okay, so a couple of months ago, we were out serving in the community, and I was driving my Honda Civic, and we were donated a van by Tyler Perry. And once we received the van, it just opened up an opportunity for us to really get out there and do some work. And so again, when God gives me something, it's like, hey, And I got the word going highways and byways, didn't know what it looked like. And we actually did some work in South Carolina a couple months ago. And that let me know that we can do this safely, because we actually stayed in a hotel, took all our cleaning supplies. And I said, you know what? We're gonna go to California. We're gonna do this. And I put this trip together in a month. And we had one guy, uh, uh, Power in Black T-shirt company. He's out in Decatur, and met him through another friend. And how much is this trip going to cost you? And I said roughly about $4,000 or $5,000. And he donated the money. Small family business, made sure we had food, gas, lodging, and so we just took to the road.
Before we go too far, one thing I'm really big on is I don't believe in supporting just Black-owned businesses. I believe in supporting Black businesses that support Black communities, that employ Black people, and that are housed in Black neighborhoods, so that we had a visibility so people can see what it's like to run a Black business. So can you mention that business that supported you one more time?
It's called I'm sorry, Power in Black. Power in Black.
And
Power
where
in
are
Black.
they located?
They are in Stone Mountain, Georgia. I would post get that address to you. But brother just said, hey, how much do you need? Didn't hesitate, and didn't know me really. He met me through a guy who has a food truck, Anthony, and we did some work together, and just word of mouth talking. Hey, this sister's out here she's hitting the pavement. And he said, you know what? I was going to do something like this before, but I'm not. But since you're doing it, let me pour into you.
Now,
And so
our Black businesses, our Black business community would come together and say, we want to fuel the people who are doing the work in the streets. Now, every business may not be able to cut a $5,000 check, but if every business said we'll give $50 a month, we'll give $100 a month collectively,
that's right.
look at how much work we do.
But I mean,
we don't have to pray for a president to come in the office who we hope is going to see our community, see our needs. We can be those people, because if we do it collectively, then we can cover everything without it taking any one company down.
Well, and you know what, and I'm a firm believer. I'm just like you. Like you say, put it out in the atmosphere. We have a small church in Palmetto, Abundant Grace, small Black church, and just seeing what we did doing. They pay our storage once a month. Just and plant seeds. And I don't go to the church. They just see you hitting the pavement. Hey, Erika, we're in Palmetto. There are not a lot of homeless people. You're hitting the pavement. We're going to pour into you. And so what
you do the work and people see you do the work and the work increases, but you got to make a way by doing it. We down to the last 7 minutes.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't want to keep cutting you off. You were telling a story about the trip to California.
So we drove. Pam and I, just two of us, the lady I met in church. We drove from Atlanta to California, and we didn't just drive. We took over 10,000 of the hygiene kits with us. We stopped in every state along the way. We dropped bags off to the local shelters. The purpose of this trip was to really talk about homeless in America. It's not just in Atlanta. It's not just in California. The topic is, if we don't do something about this crisis, if we don't tackle it, Atlanta's going to look like California. Alabama's going to look like California. It's going to be all over the place. Even in Arizona, they have thousands of tents. But what they did, they put people together. So when you can do something like that, then you can go in and do the work properly, because you have everybody in one place. So what I learned on the trip in every state of what people were doing, my hope is to come home to talk about it, to see, hey, just something as simple as a locker. So if I am having to carry my bags, but I have a job, this is all I have. Do you have a locker that I can lock my belongings up so that I can go to work? So it's just those little things that we learn in every place. New Mexico, all the states that we stopped in, to be able to see what they were doing. That is our hope, to be able to come back. But we finished the trip. We left 3,000 bags here before we left. So we ended up over 13,000 of the hygiene kits that we served.
Wow.
Just two people.
It also shows that we all can serve in some kind of way, because everybody can't fight this fight. Everybody can't fight the criminal justice fight that I fight.
That's right.
We all have to pick up a torch. We all have to say, it's one thing I can be committed to, and it's one thing that I can erase off the list. One thing.
One thing.
I tell people this all the time. You don't have to be as committed as I am. You can do it with a small team, and y'all can rotate on the work. You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to make this your one thing, but you can work with a small group of people and erase one thing.
One thing. That's right. That's right.
Or you can
Right.
say it's a nonprofit or a group of people I believe in, because most of the time we start off as a group before we even make it to a nonprofit.
Yeah, that's right.
I want to commit myself to helping these people. Like,
Hmm.
if you could pay a cable bill, what if you downgraded your cable just a little bit and you put
That's
that
right.
extra $20 in the service,
That's
right?
right.
What if you
Yeah.
told your wife and your kids, hey, instead of us going out to eat 8 times a month, let's do 7. But I want us to take the money we save from that one time and go and serve together as a family, right?
That's right. That's
So
right.
many different ways you can serve, and every way matters. But
Matters.
um, what is it that you first could benefit from most? Like, if a business owner was watching this, or if a church was watching this, or just a family, what do you have that a business can do? What do you have that a church or organization can do? And what do you have that a person or family could do?
Well, right now, because of the pandemic, we don't have a lot of volunteer opportunities. And our prayer is that we will get into a facility which can house more of the items that we're getting in right now. And so this can consist of anything that is on the hygiene list. Right now, we're going to start doing a soap drive because we realize that people can't get to sinks and they can't get in facilities to wash their hands. But with a bottle of water and a bar of soap, they can clean up. And so that's our main focus right now, moving into 2021, is to get the inventory in that we can put it in the hands of the people. So if this is a group that wants to pour into us to get together and say, hey team, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to Amazon and send these items directly to Erica because we have a wish list on Amazon. It's Project You First, and or if there's a corporation to say, hey, we have the funds to either donate to you so that you can buy the items that you need, or we will send you anything that's on your list. Those things will help us continue to combat this virus because this is the thing. If those people who are living without walls cannot stay clean, it's just going to be a repeated cycle because they're riding the transit system. They're on the park benches. They're, in the facility, touching the same doors that we're touching. So right now, we want to make sure that we're getting this soap and these hygiene kits out to as many people as we can.
So another thing I will also think, Erica, is you need a staff. You need to be
We
able to
need a
work
staff.
so that you can actually reach
Yes,
people who need it.
yes,
Even though
yes,
Tyler Perry was so thoughtful and so much of a blessing to donate the
yes.
van needs insurance, the van needs
Mm.
tires, the van needs.
Daily operation needs, yes,
So
daily
I also
operation needs
think that if people could donate $10 a month, if people could sign
$10.
up and say, you know what, I can't do a lot, but I could do it once so often.
That's right. If they could just pledge $5 will make a world of a difference. Because like you said, just the daily maintenance of the gas. And even, as time go on, the van will need tires and so on and so forth. And just to be able to, because we are growing to the point where we need to hire staff. People are doing what they can as on the volunteer level, but we do need to hire a person that can come in and keep the books, the daily books and so on and so forth. So yeah, we definitely need that.
Okay,
We
so
need help.
we're about to close out, but if you can,
Okay.
just let everybody know where they can find you first, where they can find you, and how they can make donations, how they can send support. Just,
Okay. All right. Awesome. So the biggest way you can go directly to giving is to use the website. That's projectyoufirst.org. And you can make a donation there. If you would like to, of course, write a check, our P.O. Box is 1496. That's Mapleton, Georgia. Also, our social media links are Project You First at Project You First. That's Twitter, Instagram. You First, we have a like page, so you can go and check Project You First on there. You can also just follow me on my personal page. I usually put both there, Erika Wright, and we just we're grateful. Thank you for having us, and we're just blessed to be able to continue to do the work even during the pandemic because I know a lot of businesses are not making it. So you can imagine what a nonprofit is. I'm praying every day that we can continue to do the work.
and I'm just gonna throw this out because it's something we've talked about. If there's any other groups that want to get involved in this work in any other cities, any other states, can you also please reach out to Erika at Project You First, the letter U, not the word U,
That's
Project
right.
You First, because she can create hubs and they can make
Hmm.
you have the network,
Yeah,
have the infrastructure and
that's right.
the knowledge to be able to serve your community. So for
Thank you. Yeah.
anybody out here who really wants to be able to get into the work, who wants to be able to make an impact, even though you may not have the time to do the work, you
That's
now
right.
have an opportunity. Like we all have family members, and some of us ourselves have been without without walls and a roof.
That's right. That's right.
Don't wait for somebody else to fix a problem that you can fix.
Hmm.
And with that, I'm gonna go ahead and close out for the evening. But
Thank you. Thank you
we're
for having me.
thank you so much for the work you do every
Hmm.
single day. It's my pleasure.
Thank
But
you.
we're a
Thank you.
community. We're a family. Family takes care of family. Don't wait for
Mhm.
somebody else to do what you can do yourself. You see an
That's right.
opportunity to help. Project You First is doing phenomenal work. Phenomenal
Thank
work.
you.
And as you
Thank
see,
you.
they do it sometimes, even when they cannot, when they don't have the
Hmm.
resources, they find a way. So
Find
support
a
them
way.
so they can support others. All right. Have a great night, Eric.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.